Cooper Cole is pleased to present Grey Matter, a solo exhibition by Ryan Forrester. This highly anticipated solo exhibition of sculptural, photography, and video works marks the artist's first solo presentation at the gallery and first solo exhibition in Toronto in over a decade.
Hi, my name is Ryan Forrester, and this is my show Grey Matter at Cooper Cole. So I got 3 bodies of work in this room here. It started with, I got air duct pieces and power plant pieces on the walls. And the idea of doing a show, I guess I came up with this idea of Grey Matter for a show. I got an MRI done this past year, and I learned of the term Grey Matter. I thought it was really interesting. There's a great punk band called Grey Matter. And then I realized Canada, it's spelled, gray is spelled with an E, or America, it's spelled with an A. I forget the difference. So I liked this confusing word of this mashup of gray and unknowing something. And I think a lot of what the fuck I do has an unknown to it, or exists in a gray zone, or this flux. I used to say like my work was constantly composting, one thing generate this, and sometimes it was good food, and then it turned into scraps, and then soil, blah, 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 composting. So this show was some idea of expanding it into gray matter, and then I said, well, that's easy. I will show gray shit on the first floor. The power plant works are these flat metal works, which are all negatives or leftover spaces from industrial HVAC systems, which are in most buildings. And I started making these 10 years ago when I was at a gallery that was getting them installed. And it was extremely frustrating because it was freezing cold for the whole winter. And I also thought it's ironic that we get these giant systems, these structures that are regulating our temperature. And I like looking at these systems, and I could even maybe work with them, but I'm too insane. And I guess then exploring the leftovers or the other elements of them became more interesting because there was a huge unknown. And the guys who were installing the HVAC system saw other works I had made out of metal, and they were like, haha, like looks like something you could use. I ended up using it and built whatever relationship with these guys, where I've since gone back and taken scraps from them. I get a whole carload of them, and then I assemble them together in my driveway and make what I call air ducts, new shapes. So these are completely new shapes that have never been made before, and they look a lot like art. And I like that, but I like that it's an element of something that this metal would normally go and get melt down and generate something new. So I like that type of material, that someone after the fact could just take this and recreate something. But for me to get these elements that are considered, I don't know. I mean, to them, it's like, it's not garbage, it's still gonna be used as scrap metal and generate something. But then to take this moment of something and try to present it and recreate something is interesting to me. I just call them air ducts because they are essentially from air ducts, and then they're new shapes. So it's like air ducts, new shapes. Bam, done. The other works on this floor are these ones called power plants, which are electrical junction boxes with plants actually growing through them. This is another piece where it kind of comes from just working or living my life and learning how to put lights outside my house. My neighbor was teaching me. We had a couple junction boxes left. I'd really liked it. I was in charge of assembling them. That's what he showed me. He did all the work. And I had 2 left over. I had left them outside. My garden grows like a jungle, and I had these plants grow into one in like 2 days. And I just cut that, and I thought, that's perfect. That's so funny. So then I hung it on my fence for a couple months, it dried out, and I said, I should do more of those. I like electrical the same way I'm interested in HVAC systems or plumbing. I like these systems that are created, and this is the best way to get this to this, because in my whole process as an artist, I have no idea how they go to get this to this. There's all this made up rules or made up pathways that I follow. So I am envious of these systems, and I like doing them, or I like something about them, so these somehow are related in that way. And I also just really like working outside. My studio is basically my yard, my driveway, so a lot of stuff has been generated from that, or being out in the actual world. I don't like the idea of just me being in my studio. It's more being out in the world, and that's how a lot of this stuff has been generated over the years, even from the documentary photography to what it is now. For the power plants, I guess what I'd say again is like, it's funny calling them power plants. It's like interesting thinking of power structures, what's powerful, who has the power, mashing up two seemingly completely different materials. Again, both these materials could be reused at some point. You could melt it down, plant could be composted. I like also that they're all made in my yard. This is shit that is either weeds I don't pull or stuff that is growing around me that's in my environment that is then framed in these exact moments of maybe having some form of power, whatever the hell you want to think. They're just twisted to look at, and then I put a couple in some shows and it was a good response. So this one is really beautiful here. I really love this one, where this is really cool when one vine starts to choke out the other one. And this actually didn't grow through this one. I cut it down, it was beside it, but I saw it in the winter. And I like that the plants, it seems like they're either hugging or they're fighting. You can't tell what's going on. It almost looks like they're gonna touch at the very top, but they don't. I love seeing images of snakes fighting, two snakes fighting, it reminds me of that. And also, like, okay, so it seems like with power plants, you're critiquing power, electrical, industrial, whatever, natural world. But this one's really beautiful because it's two plants battling it out too. So even in this natural world, there's this entwined, messed up system. Those ones are my favorite, when the two plants battle in the power plant. The window has probably the newest piece I made, which is all glass, string and wire. I call it Support Group 123, and it's based off of a support structure I make in my garden again for growing plants, different ones. At the end of the year, you have this whole crazy wiry mess that was used to support tomato plants, this, that, and come November, you just have a crazy web. So I started collecting scraps of glass and then melting them in a kiln. So all these pieces kind of have imperfections in them. There's either bubbles, bits of debris, glass that doesn't quite work together. And this is a good example of like one of these processes I find that's like, okay, there's all this glass on the beach, I'm gonna do something with it. And then, oh, I need to get new glass as well to help build the structures. So even the power plants start, and then I'm gonna go buy more of the junction boxes. So maybe one little element leads to a structure I follow through my practice, and then I get sick of it. So that would be the closest I work within a structure system, like electrical, HVAC, plumbing, whatever. So this is all glass, bits that have been found, and then stuff that has been bought, and just melted together to make kind of, again, new shapes. I like glass as a material that you could regenerate, you could break it, make a new piece with it. And I started making these, I would either use them in photography in the darkroom or within other sculptures. I started just hanging them in my window, which I thought was a good way just to present glass, or on my table. So this is the first time I did a larger structure and connected it with this support group idea, where it's a whole support network of different things connected. So instead of all the plants, it's just, bam, different moments of glass. Cool to have this vault here. In the vault, I have a Super 8 film I shot. I shot it in 2012. It was on Kodachrome. They discontinued Kodachrome. I just found a place that will cross-process it as black and white. So I had it done, kind of looked shitty because a lot of stuff was missing from the color. So I collaged it. This is collaged with MRIs I had done this past year. It's collaged with clip art that's free from the internet. and the music on top of it is myself playing my organ, and the other stuff is recordings of music off the radio that I'm just like, whoa, what the hell is that song? And then record it. So it's kind of a collaged together documentary of, spread over 10 years. The original Super 8 footage was just shot at my house, at the beach. But I like the mashup of time of all these things coming together to make some type of documentary. This on the door is like a good example kind of that. I just thought it looked good, like a notebook that would be in some bureaucratic setting, but it's all filled with these drawings I do mostly on a daily basis in the morning when I don't even think without coffee. And it's just done with pencil and watercolor, and I date stamp them. So I like that moment of just like, here's today's thought, here's today's energy burst, you know? And they're not all the best, but it's a cool way to get things flowing in the morning. And I'd like to show drawings at some point, but I thought it looks great on this door. In here, besides the Super 8 video, there's also 2 sets of printing plates. This one was just made a few months ago. These ones were made in 2015. I've explored printing plates for I don't know how many years now. Close to 20 years of making zines and publications. I would take the physical plates and try to make works out of them after. So these ones were collaged with paper at the printing press. Again, similar also to the air ducts. It was very fast cutting shapes in the paper and putting it back on without thinking. And so you have 2 layers, the aluminum printing plate and one, a thin newsprint, both now covered in ink, which creates these 2 layers of new shapes. And the one on the further side are plates that are mostly blank. There was a line of images across them that was the band across it, and the rest is collaged with all different elements of stuff. I think a lot of stuff when I walk around, walk my dog, and that's a lot of stuff I found at the beach. Petrified wood, some of these bigger chunks, I can never remember what it's called, but it's whale shit basically. Big chunks of it are worth a lot of money, but it shows up on the beach. So there is some seashells in here, but I liked it being also this kind of detritus of the ocean, like wood that had gone on it and turned petrified. It's like an iPhone thing. This is some type of waste from animals. All these ones that look more burnt out, chunks, these things, they're all also interesting materials because they're really light, but they look like rocks. So I just matched them up as I collage these with the different shapes to make kind of like a sound wave or some type of shifting shapes that are going around similar to those shapes, energy, I don't know, whatever the fuck is around you. So this room down here explores more photography that I've done in the past couple years mostly, but also builds on a lot of exploration I've done of photography and documenting my surroundings and messing with the material. There's many straight photographs I've taken in here. A lot of them are taken in my neighborhood, places I visit. Some have been altered in the darkroom, either done intentionally or by accidents. There's one here of shot in the aquarium in Coney Island, but the chemistry I was developing in had a lot of bits of flakes in it, so you got this kind of dusted image over top of it. There's other black and white ones that got partially solarized because my darkroom is not totally sealed. I was doing it at my house. I guess in here it's like it turns into like more of a train of thought and overlapping moments I was in. Just different ways of editing kind of how I see the world. And I'm not going out specifically to try to document something. It's more, oh, I really want to take a picture of my dog lying on my bed, you know? Or I'll notice the sunflowers in the yard. With the snow, it looked like it got connected to like the electrical line. So I'm taking pictures like that. It's all just kind of going about my life. I don't go out and say, I'm gonna do this or that. I go out and end up creating things, which is, I ended up putting this sculpture in here which is my old boots, and the toes themselves had got worn down a bit to show the steel, so I ground out the whole toe just to see how much steel was really under them, and I was like impressed that there's that much, and I attached on either one a white bag and a black bag, which were the leftover of the stack of plastic bags for like the poo bags for the dog. And I liked thinking about a lot of things. You're just like, all right, I'm going out, I'm doing this. And then you don't know when something's gonna hit you or you're gonna create. So this kind of having these many layers of, I don't know how many, it's probably like 100 bags you have on there. So there's 100 little slits of plastic attached to these. And I like thinking of all these moments that have possibilities, or as I go about my life. And again, a lot of it, I'm like, I really do love those shoes. And I was attracted to those plastic bag things. So it's kind of like some of these things get collaged together that way, or physically when I do an installation and make it, pieces connect through relating to each other on the wall. There's a picture of a trail from behind my grandparents' house in Sudbury. And I always liked seeing this pathway here of kind of the marshlands there. I just call it the path to Sudbury, and even thinking of how people, where they end up geographically, relating it to the landscape. I don't know, so it kind of goes about thoughts you have in your head at that time, and then the photos you make. And I took that photo 10 years ago, and then I ended up reprinting it like 5 years ago. So there's a lot of like exploring stuff I create as I do and relating back to things in the past. So like memories are overlapping on top of each other as they're being created. This huge black strip in here is photographic paper. It started many years ago. I worked at a darkroom and I would use a lot of the leftover material. And this is exposed photographic paper developed. And essentially it looks black, but it's really made up of all the colors that could be in a photograph. So the circles, the bursts of colors you see, or even in this one up here, are made through pressure of mostly flower pots are on them to create the circles, the water that goes underneath it, and the amount of time that it sits on it. And it can release the colors really fast, or it can go slow, and you can start to see all these different layers in it. So this is another kind of process I did where it was something I wanted to try to use this material, especially a huge strip like this, and try to recreate something new. And it has the similar process with the plates. There's a lot of interesting stuff I find that I maybe collage it together to try to show these different relationships. And I end up doing it even in straight photographs. This was an amazing waterfall in upstate New York, but it had like a slit just in between the two landings of the rocks that I thought was incredible. So there's only like 4 inches where a huge waterfall goes down, and these things were connected, but then water from time split that thing apart. This is like a really old school MRI machine that I had done. I just photographed it. I loved the whole tier structure that they had set up of it. And then I brought in some of those glass sculptures I made and tried to relate them together. So a lot of it's like, how do these things relate? And I'm trying to figure it out as I do it, because then I don't even know how some of these things come together until I'm here and I'm like, oh, that does make sense, that association with this to this. This is another printing plate. This is from the graffiti project I did about spray painting Val Kilmer. This was done in Newmarket, where I'm from, Toronto, and in New York in 2003, 2005. And I had never showed these plates from the zine I made, but again, I was like, it seems appropriate to show it back in Toronto. This was like a big point where I had done this, and connecting humor into a lot of this work. So even though there's some like serious ideas I'm thinking of, there's a lot of stuff that then makes me laugh, and I try to incorporate that in as I go along. These ones that have more kind of computer looking images are photos I took. I didn't like the photos, but instead of just thinking that photo's done with, I started collecting free clip art online. So there's websites where you could get, whatever, thousands, millions of free images to make your own artwork. And I said, why don't I start doing that? So I would take these things that I was attracted to And I then put them on in Photoshop and then print them out again. I take maybe like 1,000 at a time. I'm just taking them off the computer, and then as I go back with an image I didn't think was successful, I find out ways that I can make associations and regenerate something with it. So a lot of the work gets built up like that over time. On top of it just being straightforward images, this is a humpback whale lunge feeding in the Atlantic that I took a few months ago. I went out whale watching. Who knew? It's incredible. And to see a whale jump out of the water and eat is insane. That's not the best photo, but it tried to capture that insane moment. There's also pictures of the Wonder Wheel. I live in Brooklyn near Coney Island. I don't know why the hell I took pictures of the Wonder Wheel. It seems like the cheesiest thing to photograph, but I did one night. It's clear as day, it says Wonder Wheel. The whole Wonder Wheel is moving. This beautiful abstract pattern it created. And then I was thinking after, I shot 6 pictures of the Wonder Wheel. Why the hell did I do that? But I do think the Wonder Wheel is an amazing metaphor, really inspiring thing to be on a wheel, turning around, especially at the ocean, and it's really exciting. Here, there's a video in the show also that's really cool. This is shot in the first month I moved to Brooklyn from Toronto. So again, it seemed like this is the first show I've done in Toronto in many years. It seemed like a cool thing to relate to it. This is me photographing, the flash is going off. I'm at the waterfront where I used to live in Brooklyn. I lived down the street, and I had so much insane energy, excitement. I wanted to photograph, document things. I didn't know really anyone. I had a couple friends. So I was photographing rocks. I'd go and take tons of pictures of rocks. And my friend at the time was like, I can't even see where you go, but I just see your flash going off. And I see the flashes from the city. I said, I want to see that. So we shot it on a mini DV. And then after the fact, I realized it's a really cool, one of the first things when I went from being like a documentary photographer to having this kind of meta or like cycle process. So some of the stuff I was talking about at the beginning were like, this generates this to that. So then it seems funny to have a video of yourself photographing, but it is in a way a cool work of how I was working as a photographer and having that level of excitement to want to document something as stupid as rocks and relating it to all the experiences that are going on in the city behind you and the flashes going off there. So I think that's a pretty good work. But I hadn't shown it before. I mean, I did show it once in New York, but I'd never shown it here, but it really captures the energy or spirit I had when I left Toronto to New York and that level of excitement. So this whole thing, there's many documentary photographs, experiments in the darkroom, and that's kind of an ongoing process for me. Like even if I start working on just those air duct pieces, there's a level of really wanting to document things through photography, video, or whatever medium, film, and of course, then I just like working with my hands and I like material, so it always leaches into that as well, and I try to incorporate that some way. One of the other stranger things in the show that maybe makes no sense to people is this neon piece I have back here. A few years ago, I went to a silkscreen studio where you could print like whatever for 6 hours, and the only silkscreens, I had some screens, some prints, again, of a head scan I had done. The only paper they had was this neon one, and a lot of people there didn't want to print on it, but I made a crazy amount of prints on this neon green paper. I never know how the hell I'm going to show it because neon green's really tough to show. And this is a backpack my health insurance company gave me, and it matched up with this paper, and I get given a lot of shit for this backpack. So I decided it's time to retire it, and it matched up with this paper pretty good. So this is some weird self-portrait of health and also a tribute to my health insurance company. And since the show was gray, whatever, I tried to do everything dark. It's nice to have a real burst of crazy colors. Green screen, fake out, I don't know. So that's where that thing came from. It's all really just when you're going through your life, trying to figure out the pieces of it and how it all relates. And this is some version of that now for me.